to the Township of Howell Planning Board meeting for Thursday, June 6, 2024. Eileen, opening statement, please.
I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Planning Board to be open, adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 5th, 2024, a copy of said notice was emailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger. Second, on January 5th, 2024, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 5th, 2024, said notice was posted in the office of the Planning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits, which are on the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a new member of the Planning Board, Mr. Matthew Withers, that needs to be sworn in properly.
Sure. Mr. Withers, if you just stand. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Matthew Withers,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all of the duties of the office of Class 4 member of the Planning Board
all the duties of the office of Class 4 member of the Planning Board
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the government established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard, Matt. Okay. Eileen, roll call, please.
Mr. Cristiano?
Present.
Mr. Greenfield's been excused. Mr. Leggio?
Present.
Mr. Mercer?
Here.
Mr. Tannenhouse? I have not heard from. Mr. Withers?
Present.
Mr. Rebel?
Here.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Here.
Ms. Pike has been excused. Mr. Carbonic, I have not heard from. And Chairman Husser.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women serving both here and abroad. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Eileen, do we have any minutes?
I have no minutes this evening.
Any correspondence?
I have no correspondence this evening.
All right, right into resolutions. First one is area in need of redevelopment. Eligible voters, Mr. Leggio, Mr. Mercer, Councilwoman Fisher, and myself. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Mercer?
Second.
Mr. Leggio?
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Second is for case number SP1114, Lowe's Companies, Inc. Eligible voters, Mr. Leggio, Mr. Mercer, Councilwoman Fisher, and myself. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Leggio?
I'll second.
Mr. Mercer?
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolutions memorialized.
Next is case number SP1122, 32 Southern Avenue, LLC. Eligible voters, Mr. Leggio, Mr. Mercer, Councilwoman Fisher, and myself. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Leggio?
I'll second.
Mr. Mercer?
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolutions memorialized.
Next is case number SP 1123, SMC Properties LLC. Eligible voters, Mr. Leggio, Mr. Mercer, Councilwoman Fisher, and myself. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Mercer?
Second?
I'll give that to Councilwoman Fisher.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
Next is case number SP 1104, 96 Industrial Court LLC. Eligible voters, Mr. Leggio, Mr. Mercer, Councilwoman Fisher, and myself. Do I
Mr.
have a
Chairman?
motion? Yes.
I received an email, and I had a subsequent telephone conference with the applicant's attorney on 96 Industrial regarding one of the conditions associated with the truck travel route. He requested some revisions, and he has sent me the transcript that he wants me to take a look at. So he's requested that this resolution be carried to the next meeting while I review the
Sure,
transcript.
okay. Not a problem. So we'll skip that one. That would put us to case number SP 1120, Carmine Caruso. Eligible voters, Mr. Leggio, Mr. Mercer, Councilwoman Fisher, and myself. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Mercer?
Second.
Mr. Leggio?
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
Next is case number SP 1051, Cornerstone Calvary Chapel. Eligible voters, Mr. Mercer and myself.
I'll make a motion.
And I will second.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
Next is case number SD 2997A, Larrabee Realty LLC. Eligible voters, Mr. Leggio and Mr. Mercer.
Motion.
Mr.
Second.
Leggio, Mr. Mercer.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
Okay. Next is SD 2991A, Mark Chickatano. Eligible voters, Mr. Cristiano, Mr. Mercer, Mr. Rebel, Councilwoman Fisher, and myself. Do I have a motion?
I'll make motion.
Mr. Cristiano,
Second.
Mr. Rebel.
Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
Okay, the next is Farmland Preservation Plan element of the Municipal Master Plan. Eligible voters, Mr. Leggio, Mr. Mercer, and myself. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Leggio,
Second.
Mr. Mercer.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
We're also going to have to put the following on next agenda, case number SD 3003 CI for Howell Township, as there are no eligible voters present.
You're going to have to do the next two as well, because we only have one eligible voter.
Oh, that is correct.
So I'll put them
So,
all on the next one.
yeah, the amendment to the municipal master plans will both go on next agenda. And the last is case number SD 3011, Blizenyuk Properties LLC. Eligible voters, Mr. Leggio, Mr. Mercer, Councilwoman Fisher, and myself. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Mercer,
Second.
Mr. Leggio?
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries, resolution memorialized. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to switch some things around for the sake of ease. Submission waivers. We are going to start with case number SP 1116, Jersey Central Power and Light Company, for a preliminary and final major site plan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a conflict of interest on this, so I'll be recusing myself. You do have conflict counsel with you tonight.
Yep. Thanks, Ron. Good evening.
Good evening. James De Niro from Bertone Piccini on behalf of Jersey Central Power and Light.
Could you just spell your last name for me?
D-I-N-I-R-O.
Thank you.
Okay. So typically, we turn it over to our professionals to kind of walk us through. Laura? I
Yep.
guess that needs to be sworn in.
Yeah. I do. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the submission waivers are specifically outlined in item 4, on page 4, item 3 of our May 8th review letter. Going through these items, it would appear that checklist item number 11, the Freehold Soils Conservation District application, should be submitted as they exceed 5,000 square feet of disturbance. Checklist item number 60, which is the overland and underground drainage conveyance within 2,000 feet downstream, as I know that's an item this board typically does not waive. And in addition, checklist item number 85, Woodlands Management Plan. We have some comments in our review letter about tree removal, when it occurred, and permits, and I'd like to have that information in advance of a public hearing. So I take no exception to the granting of the balance of the items for the purposes of deeming the application complete. However, I would recommend that item 11, 60, and 85 be provided.
Acceptable?
Yes.
Okay, easy enough. Any questions from the board? Okay. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion.
Mr. Leggio. Mr. Mercer.
Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. Withers? You can say
Yes.
yes. Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll get Ron back.
Where was it?
Have a good night.
Yeah, you kind of have to go behind them, sorry.
Thanks. All right, Ron's back. All right, the second submission waiver is case number SD 3014, Neil and Monica Slattery for a minor subdivision with ancillary variance relief. Counselor.
Good evening.
Good
David
evening.
Leone, Carton Law Firm, on behalf of the applicants.
All right.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, similarly, the submission waivers are specifically outlined in item 3 of our April 12th, 2024 review letter. This is a minor subdivision, and so for those reasons, I take no exception to the granting of these waivers for the purposes of deeming the application complete. It will ultimately yield 2 lots, one of which is already developed, so I take no issue.
Any questions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make motion for approval.
Mr. Cristiano,
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher,
Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. Withers?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too. The last, we are going to hold off for case number SP 11264461 Route 9 Realty because the attorney cannot be here until 8 o'clock. So that being said, we'll get back to that one. So we will move into applications. First, this evening, case number SP 1115, Jabe Howell LLC. This is for a preliminary and final major site plan with ancillary variance and design waiver relief.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
My name is Michael Butler from the law firm of Eckert Stevens, here on behalf of the applicant, JAB Howell LLC. Just a question. I know Councilwoman Fisher and Board Member Withers, they're new to the board, I guess new to this application, I should say. Are they voting tonight?
Councilwoman Fisher has certified, so
Okay.
she's good.
Perfect. Great. So once again, my name is Michael Butler. This is a continued hearing for our application for the development of the property located at 402 Cranberry Road. It's designated as Block 182, Lot 4 on the Howell Township tax maps. We were here before this board back in February. I was going to say a couple weeks ago, but it's a couple months ago. Time flies. And what we originally came to this board for was, we were asking for preliminary and final site plan approval for 2 phases of this, this application. It's a trade contractor's business. And while we were presenting our application, the board asked some really good questions, some pointed questions, and what we decided to do was to make sure that the board's comfortable, and so we modified our application and made it for preliminary and final for phase 1, and just final for phase 2, meaning that if we ever want to develop phase 2, we have to come back to this board and ask for an additional approval to make sure that you're comfortable with what's happening on phase 2. So tonight's application, what we're talking about is just for preliminary and final for phase 1, which is the building in the front, and then preliminary for phase 2. At the last hearing, we did go through some testimony. I had the applicant, my client, Andrew Walsh, who's back behind me, testify about the nature of his business and how the property is going to be used. We also had John Ray, our traffic expert, come, and he provided testimony about the traffic from the site and that there's going to be little impact to no impact from the traffic. He was qualified and accepted from this board as a traffic engineer. He's before this board all the time. At the end of his testimony, the board asked questions, the professionals asked questions, the public asked questions, and we closed out his testimony. Also, we had testimony from our architect, Amanda Lanudo. She was also qualified as an expert in architecture from this board. She gave a presentation on the architecture that is proposed for this site. I think Ms. Bell said that she liked the architecture. And she also was questioned by the board's professionals and by the public, and her testimony was closed. We also presented the testimony of Mr. Ward. Pat Ward is next to me. He started going into the engineering, but we didn't he's also going to be our planner, but we stopped at the engineering at one point because we knew we were going to change the plan a little bit. So we thought that we would stop that night, let you guys go home, and we'll come back. So what have we been doing in the intervening months is Mr. Ward and my client have been meeting with the board professionals out the site, talking to the township and kind of reworking some of the stormwater and some of the landscaping and some of the aspects of the site plan to make it more palatable to the board and to the board professionals. So what I would like to do tonight is I was going to have Mr. Ward, who was already sworn in and accepted as an expert in engineering. I'd like to have him go through what the site plan looks like currently and kind of talk a little bit about some of the changes that were made so that we could meet the questions and the concerns of the board's professionals.
I just remind you that you remain under oath.
Yep, perfect.
All right. Thank you,
You
Mr.
beat
Chair.
me to it, Ron. All right, Mr. Ward. I gave a quick update, but could you just maybe run the board through the site plan as it currently stands and some changes that we made in conjunction with our discussions and meetings with the board's professionals?
Right, so to echo what you said, we left here last with kind of a punch list of things to do, and the punch list was meet with and discuss some of the outstanding items with the board professionals and also the township engineering office, and we've done that. So we have consulted with the board engineer, the township engineer, and actually had a site meeting with Ms. Spiro, the board tree expert, just to discuss these outstanding items. And I'll kind of summarize what was outstanding or what needed to be clarified or changed, and then what we actually ended up with. So first and foremost, maybe the more technical of the three that I'm going to talk about is stormwater management. There was a comment in the last CME review letter about the discharge location. If you recall, we had the outlet for the front basin was directed towards Cranberry Road and right towards the street. So the township engineering office and the board engineer had issue with that, which we don't disagree with, and the applicant considered some options. And we went through a couple iterations with the township, and what we landed on was a sewer extension, a storm sewer extension. So what we're going to have is a very similar situation with stormwater management on site, a series of basins collecting their own drainage areas. But the front basin will have your conventional outlet structure. It'll be connected to a new storm sewer that'll be directed west, underground, to a series of inlets that are on the west end of Cranberry Road. So there is no discharge to the surface to potentially impact any of the neighbors around, particularly to the west. We keep that water off the surface, and eventually it makes it to a creek, which ultimately, all this water is going to the same watershed and creek. Now we're just sending it through a new extension of the municipal system and to existing municipal piping. So,
And if I could just stop you
Yeah.
real quick, just for identification, the board's all looking at an exhibit. I believe that that exhibit's been marked as Exhibit A.
This is phase 1,
26.
26.
826, okay.
A26, and that is an exhibit that you prepared,
Yep.
your office prepared, and it shows the new rendering for Phase 1 of the project.
That's correct. And what this shows, it doesn't show the physical extension, because our renderings typically just show what the property's going to look like from the sky. But there's a big blue arrow on there with a call out that explains that we are sending the water west underground. The site plan set that was submitted for the board, reviewed by the board engineer, shows that, the size of the pipe, the slope of the pipe, and the location of that pipe. And there's some points of clarification in the CME review letter regarding stormwater management. We take no objection, the applicant takes no objection to meeting those, or addressing those comments, I should say, as a condition of approval with CME if the board so grants that approval. Generally, the grading and the collection systems on site really didn't change. It was really more focused on the outlet. The geometry of the front basin changed slightly. There's other reasons for that, which I'm going to get into right now. And that's our meeting that our office had with Ms. Spiro on site and the applicant, walk through the property in an attempt to try to save some of these mature trees where we can. And we actually, at Ms. Spiro's recommendation, we as a group here, and really mostly her, identified a handful of species, of trees, not a handful, more than a handful of mature trees that we can keep. And if you'd be so kind to start at the front, I think that's where really the stormwater basin geometry really changed, because we're keeping a couple of really large coniferous trees at the front, and also a couple of deciduous trees, and we're going to work around them. So the basin is kind of pulled off of that a little bit. We are going to supplement in between those trees with new trees. And as you make your way further back, we're going to provide the buffer on the west side with the berm and the new plantings. But then about halfway to the rear of the site, there's several trees that are mature that we're going to keep. And we're going to, again, work around those to continue to provide that buffer. There's a bit of an existing canopy area, that's that green mass that's right there. And then at the very back corner, get back to our new berm and new plantings, again, to provide that buffer on that west side. So what's the net of that? A couple things. One, we get to maintain these mature trees, so on day one of this site, operationally, those trees are mature and doing what the ordinance intends for mature plantings along that buffer. It also reduces the deficit as a whole for the replacement, and really what we are requesting the board to grant us in terms of that tree contribution fund. Significantly reduces that. We are also, if we wouldn't mind going to the front of the property again, we've supplemented the front at the request of the board engineering office and the board tree expert to provide a shrubbery at the entrance driveway on either side, which is typical of new developments in town. And we also have, in between some of the existing trees that we're keeping along the street, we're proposing more. So the goal here is to provide western buffer. We also want to visually screen across the front, which is one of the design waivers that was previously on the table about screening that front parking. Based on the board professional review letters, it appears that we have eliminated that request for that design waiver by doing this. There are also comments in the latest CME review memo regarding landscaping, some species swaps and what's more appropriate for certain areas. As is typical with dealing with the township and this board, we will be happy to work with Ms. Spiro to refine and adjust as needed to get this, in terms of species and even some location comments she had, to pin down and get this to a point where she's satisfied. So, in our opinion, the meeting and the subsequent plan changes here are positive from what you saw previously and result in a better product here. The last change, significant change, is lighting. So we did hear the board's comments and feelings about the lighting and, I want to say not misinformation, but a lack of information shown on the last site plan. We submitted a lighting plan that shows the lighting for phase 1 and an analysis. That analysis broke out the gravel area in the back away from the pavement of the front. which is a request of CME. Also showed the final lighting plan for Phase 2, which the board had seen previously. So the big difference, and you can see it right there in the middle of that yard, there's a new light pole that has a 2-head fixture there. That is intended to fill in the gap that had existed at the last time you guys saw the lighting plan. So right now, as a result, we meet the minimum foot candle that is required in the ordinance in this gravel yard area. So now we don't have a big gap like we had previously because of the width of the yard. Future, Phase 2, that light fixture is removed. The building goes in its place. That building has wall pack fixtures around its perimeter like it always did previously. But really the main issue was, well, what happens in Phase 1? Phase 1's there forever, there's not enough light. Well, I think we've satisfied that. I feel like we have met that, at least the minimum. So those are the summary of the changes. I want to just briefly go through the design waivers that were summarized in the board professionals' review letters. First is lighting. The light intensity, the minimum of 0.3 foot candle anywhere, we've met that. The average of a maximum of half a foot candle across the entire area, we have 1.0 foot candles. So we now meet the minimum, which I stated before, so we kind of crossed off half of the design waiver here, and our average is slightly higher than what the ordinance stipulates. What we're trying to do here is balance the total number of fixtures and poles versus providing the minimum foot candle throughout. Meeting the minimum and adding that extra fixture took the highest priority with this revision, which we met, and the result here is a slightly elevated average maximum. Previously, we talked about the driveway widths exceeding 24 feet. We only have one driveway. It's the main driveway in. Due to the nature of the vehicles and this use, we feel this is an appropriate waiver request for this type of use. Loading areas, let me start over. This is one of the standards is section 188-106F1. It's about pavement. This is in particular pointed to the gravel in the rear yard. The gravel here we feel is appropriate for this type of use. We have the vehicle material storage in the rear, and the permeable pavement has more base aggregate than typical pavement sections. To summarize, we'd be happy to work with the board engineering office as a condition of approval to ensure that all final pavement sections and details are acceptable to their office. And if they need any other support or justification of what we're proposing, we'd be happy to provide it. Section 188-106G, all areas between the building and parking and building shall be landscaped. We don't have any landscaping in Phase 2 for Building B. And I know we're only here now seeking preliminary approval. It's kind of due to the nature of what that rear area is intended for in the future. We did provide plantings around Building A, except where there's entrances for vehicles and people, as was noted in the review letter. Section 188-106I2, loading spaces shall abut the building being served. In this case, and again, it's a kind of a function of this type of use. We're not expecting frequent deliveries for material that's going to go inside. It's really, there may be some material delivery outside. We showed on our plans a separate detached loading area, basically a representative area off to the side on the right side of the yard in the rear that can support the largest truck that we may see here. Again, we don't expect frequent deliveries and that type of loading and unloading. I think we testified to that last time, but we did show that the location for it where previously we did not.
And Pat, just for clarification, both of those two waivers that you spoke about that's really for Phase 2 of the project, not so much for Phase 1 of the project. So we would be coming back before this board at that time when we were asking for an additional approval. So I didn't want to have any confusion about where the waivers are, or where those last two waivers are talking about.
No, that's a really good point, and that's correct. So those waivers will be back on the table for a final approval for Phase 2 if that day comes. Section 1.
Excuse me, I just want to make note that Mr. Tannenhouse has arrived and he's here, so the record can reflect it. Thank you.
Thank you. Section 188-195A. This is about replacement trees. If you notice from the prior CME review letter to what's current, the tree replacement deficit number was reduced by almost half or just about half because of it's kind of crazy, but saving those several trees, the mature trees really reduced that deficit, which we feel is a positive here, positive change. Section 188-224G, which was loading and screening. We've eliminated that. That was in the prior review letter. That's no longer in the review letter as a design waiver. Section 188-225G1 is requirement of a public sidewalk across the frontage. I believe we hit upon this before. There is no public sidewalk in the vicinity of the project and not an appropriate location for it. Applicant's happy to provide the township sidewalk fund contribution. And then finally, another one that was eliminated was section 188-226E, and that's about parking lots being exposed to public view and screening of those vehicles. Again, this is a little bit unique. We have the parking pretty far off the street, but with the changes, saving the large trees up front and then supplementing in between, we have screened those parking spaces from view from the street. So we've eliminated that request. That's the direct engineering testimony. I could pause before I go into the professional planning, if the board would be okay with that. I'll do whatever.
George, does the board have any questions, engineering questions?
Laura, anything?
No, Mr. Chairman, I do not.
I do. The temporary gravel storage in the back, we are calling that storage, correct?
Yes.
Is there any type of curbing or what is proposed around the perimeter?
There's curbing around the entire perimeter. The plans do
Okay.
indicate that, yes.
Timber tie curb.
Timber tie curb.
Okay.
It says
The
right there.
lonely fixture in the center, since we don't have, typically in a parking lot, we would have some type of protection of some sort. That's where I'm going with this.
Sure.
So for the one in the center, what kind of protection do we have for things that may be stored or things that may be driving back there for that fixture? Is there ballers proposed to be around that fixture? Is the base tall enough that it can provide crash barrier?
That
Provide
base-
some testimony.
That base is I'll call it a raised base, 3 foot high off the ground, as shown on the plans. This was discussed last time. This will be a single user, which is good for control of certain things and where things are stored. We feel that that's enough.
You answered my question.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
Did I?
Okay.
Okay, perfect. I don't know if we actually had him qualified as planning.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so could you provide your qualifications to the board as a professional planner in the state of New Jersey?
Sure. I've been a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey for over 8 years. I have testified in front of this board and the zoning board of adjustment in town in both capacities, although the zoning board not so much recently because I don't carry an AICP. But yeah, I've been in front of this board and other boards as a professional planner throughout Monmouth County and elsewhere in the state.
Accept your credentials.
Thank you,
sir. Well, if you like, I
Go-
just
go
jump
right
right
in,
into
yeah.
it. First, I want to start and just reiterate the conditional use requirements here. This is trade contractor use. It's a conditional use in the SED1. We said it on the onset, and I'm not going to go through belabor each point, but we do, in our opinion, meet all of the requirements, and that's why this board takes jurisdiction. So first and foremost, we meet all those requirements, including the buffering. And in terms of other bulk requirements, we meet the building setback requirements, we meet the coverage requirements. So we feel that's a positive here. We are seeking a bulk variance for the location of the basin as noted in the Avakian review memo. In accordance with section 188-11B, no accessory structure with a series of exceptions that doesn't include a stormwater management basin can be erected in any front yard where we're proposing that stormwater management basin in the front. The township does consider this a structure and therefore a variance is needed. It's important to note that this basin that we're proposing is at or below grade. It's not your typical vertical structure, which may have a visual impact. In my opinion, this can be analyzed as both a C1 and a flexible C2 variance. At the last meeting, explaining stormwater management and how we got to the layout we got to, I explained that it's common engineering practice to site a basin generally at the lower side or lower areas of the site. In our case, the property generally has a high point in the northeast corner, which is the rear, and its lowest point along Cranberry Road. So therefore, natural location would be towards Cranberry Road at the front. Further, as I explained at the last hearing, soils investigations on site yielded a variety of results when it came to stormwater management design parameters, so the depth of groundwater and infiltration rate. To put it simply, our more favorable results were at the front of the property and they progressively got worse or more restrictive as you got to the rear. Again, furthering our argument for putting this in the front. We are required to comply with the township stormwater management ordinance, as we all know. There's no variance potential there. And while at the same time we have to balance the township zoning ordinance. So as a result of the topographic conditions and the soil constraints of the property, which limit the extent to which we can propose this accessory structure in a compliant location, the basin is forced in the front yard, and therefore we can analyze that as the hardship. Alternatively, we can look at this in the flexible C2 criteria. I think the main positive of having the basin in the front yard is that it forces the improvements in the day-to-day operations of a site like this further back in the property, away from the public. We have more green space and open space up front than what is normally seen in commercial and light industrial uses. Take a look around our immediate neighborhood here, and you can see that there's a lot of business end of things up in the front. We are also seeking a variance per the planning review for chain link fence that crosses the buffer and encloses our property. It was noted in the Avakian memo. The goal here for the applicant is to enclose that rear yard area for security purposes, and also to allow for the operator, the owner-operator of the property, to maintain this buffer area directly from his property, whether it's any trimming or likewise. We do feel this is a reasonable request where we do have the proposed fence, and that can also be analyzed as a flexible C2. In my opinion, this application furthers the following purposes of planning. Purpose A, this is an appropriate use, a permitted conditional use in the SED1, and an appropriate location of the basin, considering the limitations of the site. In my opinion, the basin location works well with the proposed improvements and allows for proper stormwater management, which promotes the general safety and welfare. Purpose C, the basin in front provides more light, air, and open space in the front yard area, which is not the norm for commercial industrial development in areas. Light, air, and open space is maintained in the front, where operations and the busyness of the day-to-day on site is focused at the rear with the rest of the hardscape improvements. In my opinion, the fence has no impact whatsoever on the light, air, and open space. Purpose I, the basin is a green space, as you can see now surrounded by existing and proposed trees. This softens the streetscape considerably, allowing for a more desirable visual environment from the street. This is a big positive considering the type of use being proposed. The fence is for the rear yard only, as I said, it's for the rear yard, the storage yard. It doesn't take away from our desirable visual environment from the street. So when we look at the negative criteria, we must focus on any impacts resulting from the property to the neighbors and public, specifically as it may relate to the basin and the front yard. If we take a step back, the site is designed, as you can see, to push the improvements that have the most impact to the rear, kind of like what the ordinance wants. It also provides the required buffer on the west side of the site to mitigate impacts to the westerly neighbor, which is residential. When looking at the basin, the system is at or below grade. It has some structural components like the outlet control structure, but again, those are also at or below grade. Generally, this isn't your typical accessory structure extending above grade or creating additional coverage or visual impacts. Therefore, we feel this basin here in this location as proposed at the front has no impact on the public or any neighbors. The fence is for the rear yard only. Again, in my opinion, the fence, chain link fence, crossing the buffer and continuing around the rear, has no impact. It won't be visible from the street, and we feel it'll ultimately be consumed by the combination of the buffer plantings and existing plantings and trees on the neighbor's property to the west. In our opinion, it has no impact. Looking at the property and the project as a whole, the applicant has made effort here to try to comply with the ordinance as best as possible. I think that's evident with the changes we're bringing to you tonight. We also further evident by compliance with all of the conditional use requirements, the building setbacks, the coverages, etc. This compliance, in my opinion, leads to no impacts, and in my opinion, we have a nice new project here on deck for Howell Township. The proposed development would not cause substantial detriment to the public good, nor substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan, and on balance, it's my opinion that the benefits of the application substantially outweigh its detriments, giving the board the ability to approve the application with confidence. And that closes my direct.
Does the board have any planning questions?
Christine, anything?
No, I take no issue with his testimony. I agree. I think the location of the basin.
I'm not sure anybody from
Oh, sorry.
from the public.
I always
area.
forget here. I take no issue with his planning testimony. I agree. The location of the basin's the most appropriate place for it.
Great. All right, I will open it up to the public if anybody has any questions regarding this application. Seeing none, I will close the public portion. Mike, any closing remarks?
No, as you know, as you heard us testify, we really did, the applicant and Mr. Ward and myself, we really tried to work hard with the professionals over the last couple months and really come and change the plan to make it a better product. And we meet all the statutory criteria, we meet the criteria for the conditional use in the zone, and we ask that you look favorably upon the application.
Oh, thank you. Okay. At this time, I will entertain a motion for,
Did he open it to the public?
Yes.
yeah?
Before you do that, how close did I come from them starting their?
If you missed any, you're not eligible.
Then I'm,
Yeah,
okay,
you-
thank you.
Just so I have this clear, we are doing a preliminary and final on Phase 1 and a preliminary on Phase 2 only.
With ancillary variance
With
and design waiver relief.
Correct. Okay, so I will entertain a motion.
Motion?
Councilwoman Fisher
I'll second.
and Mr. Cristiano.
Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. Withers?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Pat.
Hopefully it doesn't start raining again.
Don't need your cars.
Mr. Chairman, I did see Mr. Pape here, so if you wanted to go back to
Yeah.
that.
Jared, welcome. So we're going to go back and finish up the submission waivers. It's case number SP 1126 4461 Route 9 Realty LLC. This is a preliminary and final major site plan with ancillary variance and design waiver relief. Mr. Pape.
Hi. Good evening, Mr. Chair. Jared Pape on behalf of the applicant, 4461 Route 9 Realty LLC. This is a submission waiver hearing. We did receive Ms. Newman's May 16th, 2024 report. We'll
Turn it
defer
over to Laura.
Defer
Sure.
it to Ms. Newman.
Or affirm the testimony about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the applicant has since provided, the waivers are specifically outlined in item 3 of our May 16th report. Items A through C have been provided. The waivers are limited to items D through F. And given the nature of this application, I take no exception to the granting of those for the purposes of deeming the application complete.
Great. Any questions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Mercer, do I have a second?
Yep. I'll second it.
Mr. Tannenhouse.
Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Withers?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
And
Jared.
thank you for modifying the agenda. I
Sure,
appreciate
no
it.
problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You will.
Moving right along to our final application, case number SD 3011. I apologize in advance, Blyzen Properties LLC. This is for a minor subdivision with ancillary variance and design waiver relief. Counselor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good
Members of
evening.
the board, for the record, John Jackson on
That's all right.
behalf of the applicant.
Just
He
gotta
had
figure
a death in the family. He's attending to that, so he asked me to go forward in his absence, so I apologize for him not saying.
Oh,
So hopefully we'll be
Sorry to hear
okay.
that.
So I have Ms. Lorelei Cotton. She is the engineer and the planner on our application. She's filling in for Mr. Siv, Mr. Rob Siv.
Can you hold on one second till I get,
Pardon me?
Did
I
you s-
emailed it.
okay, give me 1 second to get that.
While that's being looked for, can I hand out the hard copy of my PowerPoint with your permission? Sure. Thank you.
It's going to take a minute to load up.
Which exhibit are we up
Mike,
to?
do you mind grabbing those from?
Yeah, sure. Right here.
Yeah, I can get it.
This is A10 because they sent me one earlier, that's A9.
Okay. All right, so this will be marked as A10.
Thank you, and with your permission, you've marked A10, my PowerPoint consisting of 5 pages. It's basically file information and a couple of aerial photographs. I forgot my movie screen tonight, but Mrs. Banner was kind enough to let me email it to her and accommodate me putting it on your screen.
No, the mic is on, but you might want to bring it closer to you.
This one?
Yeah,
This one?
there you
That
go.
better? I'll
You
sit
can
down.
sit.
Thank you.
Did I give you an exhibit list?
You did.
Okay. Because A9 is something that was emailed to me earlier today, and then this one's A10, just so you have it.
B9 is the A9 you said?
Was the aerial that was sent to me
The aerial,
earlier?
yes, and I have copies of that as well, but since it's, with your permission, if I can hand this out as well.
Here, I'll take it for you.
So while that's being handed out, if I may, by way of brief overview, this is a lot on Hols's Corner Road that consists of 30,000 square feet, and it is 100 feet wide, I'm sorry, and we propose to make two lots that would be 15,000 square feet each. The lot currently has an older house. We were just looking at aerial photos. We figure it was probably built in 1963. That house is going, around 1963. That house is going to stay there, and we'll be building a new house where the garage is located. One of the items that your planner and your engineer and your attorney brought up to us during our review was that that garage would have to go at some point. We would like to keep it until the subdivision is perfected, and at that point, hopefully we'll have a new house going in, and then that could be the garage for the new house. But but we would have to make arrangements for it to go after a very specified, after a specified time period, probably coinciding with the perfection of the subdivision, which generally takes 6 months. The reason is to have a freestanding garage on its own lot requires a use variance that this board cannot allow. That would be a non-conforming use, as Mr. Cachero has advised us. So that's my little overview. With your permission, I'd like to have Ms. Lorelei Totten sworn and qualified as an expert in engineering and planning, then she'll go through the merits of the application.
You swear or affirm the testimony about to provide this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Lorelei Totten, Lorali, Totten, T as in Tom, Otten, Crest Engineering Associates, Inc., 100 Reich Drive, Millstone Township, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I have
You can sit.
both. Do you want me to do my planning, my credentials?
Yeah, but
Yes.
you could sit so we catch you on the mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a engineering license from 1983, a planning license from 1986. Both are in good stead. I graduated from Lehigh University in 1977. So I think that makes something like 47 years working, and I've been with Crest for 30 years as of May 24th. And I've been before this board back in the 1995 timeframe, and many times since that time.
We will accept your credentials.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Totten, with the board's permission, can you give the board an overview of the application? What is the size of the lot? What we're seeking to do in a general sense? What the dimensional variances are that we need? And then we'll go into specifics.
Yes, the property, which is 30,000 square feet, is located on the south side of Hals's Corner Road, not too far from Route 1. It's one lot away from Hall Road, on the same side of the road as it is located. Currently, as was stated, there's a single-family home on the property with a deck, a detached garage behind it, and some other amenities, including a driveway. And it's mostly situated to, when you're looking at it from the road, to the right of the property. On the left portion of the property, there is an existing garage and an 18-foot wide driveway, and that garage is probably 3/4 of the way back on the lot. There are existing utilities servicing the existing home now. There are no mapped floodplains, nor are there any verified wetlands on the site. It is located in the R3 zone, which is a 15,000 square foot lot area zone. There is one existing variance. The side yard on the right side of the home is, the existing home is 7.6 feet where 10 feet is required. The proposal is to divide it into two 15,000 square foot lots. And that would result in, because the frontage of the full lot is 150 feet with 75-foot wide lots, as opposed to the required 100 feet. And we would talk about that variance after we go through, I think, the engineering. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So the home, there is a plan that shows a potential home on the property to give you an idea that a home with a 12-foot driveway will fit very nicely on this property within the setbacks, the 10-foot wide side yards, the front yard setback, and the rear yard setback, maintaining all the bulk requirements with the exception of the front yard setback. Let's see, there is a paver walkway that connects the existing home and the detached garage on the proposed new lot, and we agree that that would be removed as part of resolution compliance if you deem it appropriate to grant approval to this particular project. Let's see, so with regard to the drainage on the site, as was noted by Mr. Jackson, the house has been there for a very long time. Most of the site improvements precede the 2004 changes in stormwater management, so I don't see that there's a need for any stormwater associated with the existing structures. However, with the proposed home, as was requested by your engineer, we would certainly provide dry well size to collect the roof runoff and have all the roof leaders directed to that, and do the appropriate testing and that sort of thing. That's really the and there would be sewer and water extended to both houses, the proposed and the existing, because I couldn't tell if there was actually sewer to the existing house or not in my filling capacity for Mr. Siv. And I think that's the short overview of the proposal.
All right, thank you. So one of the exhibits that you passed out that's been marked as A9, the aerial.
Yes.
In that aerial, does that show the predominance of the surrounding lots and their size?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
It's A9, is that that's not?
Yeah, I think that's A9. That's what we handed out.
No.
The aerial is A9.
Thank you very much. So,
I don't know if we're going to shoot anyone in the eye with this, but
yeah.
hold on.
On the right side of this exhibit is a near map aerial from March of this year, and the proposed lot is highlighted as well as a proposed subdivision line. On the left side of this is tax sheet 7.15 and a portion of 7.16 to show the surrounding lots. And we put the aerial adjacent to it so you could see which lots have homes on them and which don't. Because without that, the tax map doesn't tell you where there's homes. So across the street from the proposed project, there are every single lot that fronts on Howell's Corner Road within that block across the street, the width of the lot is around 50 feet and the diagonal frontage is about 55 feet. And there are other lots in the vicinity as well, one adjacent the lot between the property and Hall, is that Avenue? I thought it was Hall Road. Hall Avenue is also an undersized lot in the zone, as well as some of the others. So what I'm trying to point out here is that having a 75-foot wide lot is definitely not out of character in this neighborhood, and that a home can be constructed on it, as is illustrated in the proposed or conceptual grading plan, shows that you can build a house on this lot and still have adequate light, air, meeting the goal that is light, I think that's C, light, air, and space around the property, because you're maintaining the proper setbacks from the side yard, the rear yard, and the front yard. So
that goes to the negative criteria. It
Yes.
fits the rest of the neighborhood. To take, we're a zone that allows 15,000 square feet and take one oversized lot and make it into two conforming in area anyway. Does that provide appropriate population densities to provide sufficient
Yes.
housing opportunities to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens?
Yes, which is goal G from the land use law.
So
Exactly.
under C2, you've identified two appropriate goals. Also, would you say there's a hardship in having an oversized lot in an area, in terms of area, that we can't fully utilize it?
Yes, I would say that there's a hardship in not utilizing the property to its best and highest
Exactly.
use.
I can understand your C2 argument. I'm having great difficulty understanding the C1 argument. Having a large yard is a hardship?
Yeah, I've advanced that in many cases where if you have an oversized lot, you're underutilizing it by having one older house and a detached garage on it. So
Oh, but isn't that the applicant's choice on how to use it? Maybe they could plant a garden. Maybe they could put in,
could,
you know,
but
other
I
improvements.
would agree with the board's attorney that I think you can certainly, use the C2 criteria, but I don't think that having a lot larger than what's permitted in the zone is a hardship.
Okay, well, that's what our argument is, and if the board attorney and your planner reject that as a reason, we'll rely on C2, because I think you're in accord that we can follow C2, so I'll move on to that. So we make the arguments under C2. Now, when you do the having the benefits of getting the appropriate use in the appropriate area that fits the neighborhood, do you think that fulfills the balancing test under C2?
I do think so, and it's unique to this lot that you can fit two properly sized lots on the property and large enough to meet all the setback requirements except for the existing house, which has a slightly undersized lot, but from the public good point of view, that lot has been like that for very long, so the public is not going to see any difference on that side of the property. So it meets the general welfare of the public requirement.
So let's take a look at some of the review letters. I'm sorry, this is the order that I opened. It might be out of slight different order. Let's take a look at the comments of the Monmouth County Health and Services. It talks about water and sewer service lines. Should the existing septic system or well malfunction, will be connected to municipal lines on Hols's Corner Road. We think they're already hooked up to that, right?
Correct, but we would agree with the comments.
Either
too.
way, we'd agree
Right.
with that. The next thing I have in my order is the Shade Tree Commission, reviewed February 22nd, 2004. No comments. I have the Environmental Commission. They asked for a 2,000-foot downstream report. Now, we were given waivers in our review from the board attorney. How would we address the request that the Shade Tree Commission get that, Environmental Commission get that 2,000-foot downstream report?
So, I don't know, is that checklist item 60?
Yes.
Okay, so a waiver was granted by the board during the waiver section, I believe?
Oh, the waiver applied to, you didn't have to submit it to be declared complete, not that the
Okay.
information was irrelevant. So
Okay.
maybe an explanation as to why you don't think that information would necessarily be useful to the board's decision-making process.
Absolutely. I would be happy to do that. I wasn't sure what the waiver was exactly for, so I appreciate that. So as I explained during the opening remarks, there's already an existing home, existing driveways, and an existing garage, as well as the larger garage, which we would like to retain, and an 18-foot wide driveway that goes down the middle of the property. That 18-foot driveway would be removed, and a home would be put there with a driveway around it. So in actuality, the increase in impervious cover is likely to be small. We won't know the exact amount until a plot plan, should you approve this, is developed for this property. But also, as I testified to, and was requested by your engineer, dry wells would be provided to collect the roof runoff, which would ameliorate the increase in impervious from the roof. So if we're doing that for the house and we're putting in a new driveway that's less wide than the driveway we're taking out, I feel that the impacts from a stormwater management point of view on 2,000-foot downstream property will be negligible, will be nothing, as a matter of fact. So we would request that you waive the actual study as well.
And Lorelei, just to clarify, this is not a major stormwater development, correct?
That's true. A major stormwater development, as you well know, is the increase in a quarter acre of impervious cover, which is 10,000 square feet. And we'd have to pave both lots, I think, to reach 10,000 square feet. Plus, the other part of it is disturbing an acre or more. And since we're at 3/4 of an acre with the lot size, that's also not possible. So there isn't any way this project could meet the requirements for a major stormwater management project requiring the standard reductions, water quality, and groundwater infiltration.
The next item is the Farmers Advisory Committee, no comment, so we won't.
Before you carry on, Ms. Newman, do you agree with that testimony?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry. May I proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. The next matter is the Farmers Advisory Committee Plat Review Number 1. There's no comment, so I think that's all we have to say about that. And then we have the board engineers and the planners report, so we'll start, I guess we can start with the planners report. Have you had an opportunity to review the planners report?
I have.
And can you just comment on the highlights on that?
We agree with the comments in the planning report with regard to the facts and the recommendations with regard to putting in a time limit for the removal of that garage on this single-family, the proposed lot, if no house is built within a specific period of time. I testified with regard to whether or not the existing pavers crossing the proposed lot line would be removed, and they would be. So I think we're pretty much in accord with the planner's letter.
I think just to clarify, I believe Mr. Jackson said in his opening, it would be 6 months, correct? And then you would demo the garage, or a year? What?
Well, if we can, there's 180 days to perfect a minor subdivision. I think the professionals indicated in our review that it would either have to be bonded or removed at the time of perfection.
Okay.
So, we would like to post a bond. If we could ask for a 2-year period, that would be great. If it has to be a condition that it has to come down as a condition of the perfection of the subdivision, we can do that as well. But like I said, it's a good garage. It seems like wasteful. Ideally, we'd be able to find get the house going and then make the garage part of that. We did not have to waste it. So I don't know what the board's preference is with that, or Mr. Pacero, what your preference is.
I don't have a preference as long as it's defined one way or the other. I would defer to the other professionals.
I take no issue with posting a demolition bond and having a 2-year time limit.
Thank you, that would be very generous. So if the board's inclined to accept that, we'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just going to the planner's letter, there's also the zoning table, and I think you addressed the variances with the side yard setback to 75-foot frontage, asked for a waiver for sidewalks. And that's another thing, we'll abide by the board's instructions from the aerials. It looks like there's sidewalks on the other side of the street, not on this side. I don't know if it would be appropriate in this neighborhood to pay into the fund or to require us to construct them.
I will say Jen Beam would be very disappointed in me if I did not say someone has to be the first person to put in sidewalks. So that is typically the planning recommendation. We would encourage the sidewalk, but ultimately it's up to the board.
It's generally less expensive for my clients to put them in themselves and to pay the...
I would recommend in this area, just because there is a high residential use in that area. I don't know how the board feels.
No, you got to start.
Yeah, I mean,
The planner's got it right.
So, Mr. Chairman, though, if I could,
Yeah, sure.
in consultation with the municipal engineering department, they note that we have a requirement for sidewalk. They would ask that if they're going to put in sidewalk, that then the board then also require curbing, and then any necessary resurfacing along the frontage.
Absolutely.
We will abide by that. There's a little wrinkle in that, and one of the items in the engineering review letter is whether we should do a dedication for the public roadway or an easement. I think Ms. Totten's office has checked with the municipal engineer, and the easement is an acceptable alternative. So work that out and abide by the instructions of the municipal engineer.
Perfect.
So just on that, Mr. Chairman, certainly if that's what the town wants to do, that's ultimately a decision from the town council. If that's what happens, that's fine, but if there's an approval based upon the easement and the town council ultimately decides it wants a right-of-way dedication, which would change the size of the lot, then they'd have to come back for an amended approval. But that's a risk, the applicant is willing to take. I just want to make sure it's on the record.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
we'll abide by that. Thank
Great.
you.
So then, Mr. Chairman, most of my letter has been touched upon directly. I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Lorelei, you agree that this subdivision, if approved, would be filed by plat?
Yes, we do.
And there was a driveway encroachment onto adjoining Lot 30. Will that be relocated to the subject property?
Yes, it will be.
And Lorelei, we had a couple minor technical comments in item 7. Do you agree to comply with those?
Yes, we do.
So, Mr. Chairman, that wraps up the engineering review.
Excellent.
That's our case, Mr. Chairman.
I don't think so. There's 2 driveways, correct?
There are. There's one that goes to the garage, and then there's all those meandering
Are they sidewalks? Like, what are they?
pavers.
Yeah, okay.
And we indicated, as I think it was Ms. Newman's recommendation, or maybe it was Ms. Beams, that the sidewalks be removed going to the house next door.
Got it.
And not the sidewalks, the pavers. And Ms. Totten indicated we would do that.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
Quick question. Note 10 on the conceptual grading plan, if a basement is proposed for the new dwelling, is there a basement proposed? And if so, can you confirm it would not be utilized for additional bedrooms in the home?
We can definitely say it would not be used for additional bedrooms, and I don't know if one would be proposed. If we did propose, if the builder wanted, or future homeowner wanted one, we would obviously have to do the appropriate soils test pit to determine the water table and make sure that it's still appropriate and we can get don't exceed the height variance as well.
So at this point in the process, it doesn't need to be determined? As
Correct.
the plan says? Okay, I just wanted to clarify. All right, thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, I will open it up to the public. Seeing none, I will close the public. Any closing remarks?
None, Mr. Chairman. I'll submit based upon our testimony and presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I guess at this time, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Mr. Tannenhouse, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rebel?
Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Withers?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And when Ms. Newman took over her letter, I knew that brevity would be my friend. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We skipped over a few resolutions due to eligible members. We now have an eligible member, so we can come back to those resolutions.
Resolution L and M.
Okay. L and M, we can get done.
That caused all kinds of trouble being didn't it?
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Sorry.
All right. This is an amendment to the land use element report of the municipal master plan. Eligible voters, Mr. Cristiano and Mr. Tannenhouse.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the land use element.
You're the only eligible voter. The MLUL permits that, so it would just be,
Oh, Mr. Cristiano.
vote to approve.
I thought Mr. Cristiano was, I got it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
That's, so because we have two, I have.
You make the motion.
Okay, then I made the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
And Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And the
Resolution
second
memorialized.
is the amendment to the circulation element of the municipal master plan. Eligible voters, Mr. Cristiano and Mr. Tannenhouse.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the circulation element of the municipal master plan.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Tenen?
Yes.
Motion carries, resolution's memorialized. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything on the master plan?
No master plan updates.
No master plan update.
Can I cancel this month's meeting then, since we,
Yeah.
this, or should I wait till our next meeting just to make sure? I
When
have
is it
time?
scheduled for?
Not till June 27th. So
Oh, I will
Well,
wait.
Ms. Fisher, is there
way.
anything the council's proposing for master plan that requires master plan meetings?
No.
I thought Jen said last time there was nothing coming up. so-
Yeah, I would still wait till the second
All right.
meeting. I mean,
I'll wait.
it's the end of the month. Ron, is there any reason to go into executive session?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Tannenhouse, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cristiano?
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.